The mining colony on 442B had been quiet for 17 days, not the good kind of quiet, the kind that meant death was waiting outside. Stood in the command center, staring at the screens that showed nothing but static. He was the operations director, which meant everyone looked to him for answers. The problem was, he had none. The alien ship circling above had made sure of that when they destroyed every communication antenna on the planet. 17 days ago, the fleet had appeared without warning. Their ships came out of jump space like ghosts, dozens of them blocking out the stars. Remembered the first transmission they sent. It was simple and cold. They wanted the rare isotopes buried under the colony. They wanted the humans gone. 2 surface settlements had refused to evacuate, that turned them to ash in seconds. Watched it happen on the satellite feeds before those went dark too. Thousands of degrees of heat delivered from orbit. Buildings melted. People vanished. It took less than a minute. That was when made the call. Everyone into the tunnels. The mining compound had been built deep underground, reinforced against cave-ins and equipment failures. It was never meant to be a fortress, but it was all they had. 300 people sealed themselves inside with whatever they could carry. The first few days were chaos. People cried. People shouted. Some wanted to surrender, thinking they would show mercy. The security officer had to explain the truth. They did not take prisoners. They took resources. Humans were just in the way. Was one of the few people in the colony who had seen real combat. She fought in the frontier wars years ago, back when humanity was still learning that the galaxy was not friendly. She carried herself like a soldier, straight back and hard eyes. When she told people to stay calm, they listened. Sara ran the medical center. She was treating panic attacks more than injuries at first. People were not built to live in sealed tunnels, knowing death waited outside. She worked 20-hour days, moving from person to person, offering comfort when medicine could not help. Her supplies were running low. Everything was running low. Minyu was the youngest of the leadership group. Fresh from engineering academy, barely 24 years old and suddenly responsible for keeping 300 people alive. He managed the life support systems, the air recyclers, the water purifiers. Every day, the machines struggled a little more. Every day, he found new ways to keep them running. They did not rush. They did not need to. Their ships sat in orbit like patient predators. Sometimes they sent down hunter-killer drones, small flying machines with sensors and weapons. The drones would probe the sealed tunnel entrances, testing the defenses. The colonists had rigged proximity mines and automated turrets, but everyone knew those would only delay the inevitable. On the 10th day, a section of the air recycler failed. Minyu worked for 14 straight hours to fix it, his hands shaking from exhaustion and fear. When he finally got it running again, he collapsed in the corridor. Sara found him there and dragged him to medical. He slept for 3 hours, then went back to work. On the 14th day, the water rationing began. Each person got 2 liters a day. No more showers. No more waste. Made the announcement himself, watching faces fall as people realized how bad things had become. On the 16th day, called a meeting with Sara and Minyu. They gathered in the command center, away from everyone else. Laid out the situation with military precision. Food for 9 more days. Water for 12 if they pushed it. Air recyclers failing faster than Minyu could repair them. Maybe 2 weeks before total system failure. "We have to try something," said. She pulled up a map on one of the working screens. "The old communications array, 3 kilometers from here. If we can reach it, send a signal." "We'd never make it," interrupted. "The drones are everywhere. They'd cut us down before we got 100 meters. "Then we die fighting instead of suffocating in here," shot back. Sara put a hand on the table. "Maybe we should vote. Let everyone decide." "Decide what?" Minyu asked quietly. "How they want to die." The silence that followed was heavy. These were not soldiers. They were miners, engineers, doctors, teachers. Normal people who signed up to dig in the ground on a distant planet, not to fight aliens. But the galaxy did not care what they signed up for. Made the decision. They would tell everyone the truth tomorrow. Give people a day to prepare, to say goodbyes, to make peace with whatever came next. Then they would try for the communications array. It was suicide, but it was something. Better than sitting in the dark waiting for the air to run out. That night people gathered in small groups. Some prayed. Some wrote letters they knew would never be read. Parents held their children. Couples held each other. The colony had become a tomb and everyone knew it. Could not sleep. He walked through the tunnels, past families huddled together, past Minu working on the failing systems, past Sora checking on patients who had no real illness except hopelessness. He found himself in the storage bay, staring at supplies that would outlast them all. Earth was 40 light-years away. Even if their distress signal had made it through before the jamming started, help would take weeks to arrive. The math was simple and cruel. They would be dead long before anyone could reach them. In the command center was planning the surface mission. She knew it was hopeless, but soldiers did not give up. They fought until they could not fight anymore. She was marking the route on her map when something caught her attention. The sensor board was showing movement, not on the ground, in orbit. The ships were moving, breaking formation, pulling back to higher orbit. Watched, confused. Why would they move now? They had won. They just needed to wait. Then the static-filled emergency channel crackled to life. A voice came through, distorted but human. The accent was clear, speaking words that thought she would never hear. Hold position. Earth strike force inbound. Clear the landing zone. Stood frozen for 3 seconds. Then she ran. She ran through the tunnels shouting, waking everyone. Heard her coming and thought something had gone wrong. Sora grabbed her medical kit, thinking there was an emergency. But was not bringing bad news. She was bringing hope. "They're coming," she shouted. "Earth sent help. The strike force is here." 300 people who thought they were dead suddenly had a reason to live. In the darkness of the underground colony, hope blazed like a star. They were no longer alone. They were no longer abandoned. Somewhere above, cutting through space at impossible speeds, Earth's finest warriors were coming to bring them home. The siege was not over yet, but now the colonists knew something that did not. Humanity did not abandon its own, and when Earth sent its strike units, nothing in the galaxy could stop them. The wait was over. The rescue had begun. The strike force ships came from the edge of the star system, moving faster than anything they had ever seen. 12, black as space itself, riding on engines that bent the rules of physics. They had crossed 40 light-years in just 9 days. That should have been impossible. Humans did not care about impossible. Strike Commander sat in the lead ship, watching the tactical display. He was 43 years old and had made 30 combat drops on 8 different planets. His face carried scars from battles across the galaxy. His eyes were calm. This was just another mission, just another group of humans who needed saving. The fleet saw them coming and opened fire immediately. Massive energy beams cut through space, enough power to vaporize a city. The strike force ships dodged. They moved like living things, spinning and diving, dancing between weapon fire that should have killed them instantly. The pilots were pushing forces that would have crushed most alien species into paste. Human bodies, built on a high-gravity world, could take it. Worked in the command, her fingers moving across multiple screens at once. She was a strike operator, which meant her job was to see everything and coordinate everyone. Neural implants in her brain let her process data streams that would have overwhelmed normal people. She tagged enemy positions, designated targets, and adjusted the battle plan in real time. Her mind worked faster than the computers. The first did something that made the aliens pause. It flew straight at a destroyer instead of avoiding it. The thought the humans were going to ram the ship in a suicide attack. They were wrong. At the last second, the spun sideways and deployed 8 strike marines directly onto the destroyer's hull. The Marines had mag boots and cutting torches. They carved through the armored hull in 30 seconds and disappeared inside. The destroyer went dark 40 seconds after that. The second and third worked together, bracketing a carrier from both sides. They launched missiles that moved like living snakes, weaving through defensive fire with an intelligence that seemed alive. Human artificial intelligence was different from other species. It learned. It adapted. The point defense systems could not keep up with missiles that changed tactics mid-flight. The carrier took 3 hits to its engine section and began spinning out of control. Watched the orbital battle develop and allowed himself a small smile. They had superior numbers and better technology, but they fought like most species fought, with rigid tactics and predictable patterns. Humans fought like Earth taught them to fight: adapt or die, win or lose everything. There was no middle ground. The push through the orbital battle toward the planet below. Ship led the way, its heat shields glowing white-hot as it hit the atmosphere. The G-forces would have killed most aliens. The human pilots just gritted their teeth and kept flying. Sat in the troop bay, checking his weapons for the 10th time. He was a strike marine, part of direct assault team. The railgun he carried was heavy enough that normal humans needed 2 people to lift it. Carried it like a regular rifle. Years of training in heavy gravity suits had made him strong enough to use weapons that should have required a vehicle mount. Around him, 29 other Marines prepared in silence. They wore powered armor that made them look like metal giants, but the armor was not what made them dangerous. Every Marine in the strike force had survived training that killed or broke 1 in 3 candidates. They were the fastest, strongest, and that humanity could produce. And they were very, very angry that someone had trapped their people. The shook as it hit the lower atmosphere. Red-hot air screamed past the hull. Defensive fire from ground positions reached up toward them. The ship's AI dodged automatically, making turns that would have torn a civilian craft apart. The Marines did not even flinch. They had done this before. The unit's tech specialist was already working on her equipment before they even landed. She had breach charges, electronic warfare gear, and a dozen tools that could cut through any lock or barrier. Her job was to get the team inside wherever they needed to go. She had never failed. This altitude indicator counted down rapidly. 5,000 meters, 4,000, 3,000. The landing zone was hot with enemy drones everywhere. Gave the order calmly. Weapons free, clear the LZ. The bottom hatches opened while they were still 2,000 meters up. Marines began firing before they even touched ground. Railgun rounds streaked down, each one hitting with the force of a small bomb. The drones that had been circling the colony never knew what killed them. They just exploded, one after another. 12 hit the ground within seconds of each other, scattered across the valley in a defensive pattern. Each ship carried 30 troops. 360 strike Marines total, facing a planet held by thousands of forces. The math looked bad. The thought they had an advantage. They were about to learn why humans were feared across the galaxy. Was the first one out of his boots hitting alien soil with a heavy thud. His helmet's sensors showed him everything within a kilometer. Enemy positions lit up in red, friendly forces in blue, the colony entrance in green. He processed it all in a second and started giving orders. The Marines moved like water, flowing across the rough terrain faster than should have been possible in heavy armor. Their powered suits amplified their movements, but the suits only worked because humans had the coordination and balance to use them properly. Most aliens could not handle the neural load of controlling powered armor while fighting. Humans did it without thinking. Saw a hunter-killer drone trying to reposition. He stopped, aimed, and fired in one smooth motion. The railgun round crossed 800 meters in a fraction of a second and punched through the drone's central processor. The drone fell out of the sky, was already moving to his next target before it hit the ground. The colony's main entrance came into view. 3 drones stood guard, their weapons tracking for movement. His team hit them from 3 directions at once. Electromagnetic pulse grenades fried their circuits. Plasma fire melted their armor. In 7 seconds, the drones were scrap metal. Moved forward to the massive blast doors that sealed the colony entrance. The doors were designed to withstand mining explosives and cave-ins. She looked at them for 5 seconds, then deployed a molecular cutter, a tool that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. The cutter's beam sliced through half a meter of reinforced alloy like it was paper. The door began to open, retracted his helmet, letting the colonists see his face. He wanted them to see that help had arrived, that they were human, that they were not alone anymore. Inside, 300 terrified people stared at the armored warriors standing in their entrance. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then smiled, the expression somehow gentle despite his face and hard eyes. "Earth Strike Force, 7th Division," he said. "Sorry we're late. Traffic was hell." The colony exploded with sound. People crying, shouting, laughing. Relief and joy mixed with disbelief. They had thought they were dead. They had accepted their fate. And now, standing in front of them, was proof that Earth had not forgotten them. Pushed through the crowd, her security training helping her stay focused while everyone else fell apart. She looked at and saw a fellow soldier, someone who understood what combat meant, someone who had come to fight. "How many did you bring?" she asked. 360 Marines on the ground, fleet support in orbit, more on the way if we need them. Looked past her at the crowd of colonists. "How many people do we need to evacuate?" "All 300, but we have wounded and—" "We'll get them all out," interrupted. "That's the mission. That's always the mission." He looked at more carefully, nodding her military bearing. "You've seen combat. Frontier wars 7 years ago. Then I'm deputizing you. We need every gun we can get. They know we're here now and they're not going to let us leave without a fight." He turned to address the whole crowd, his voice carrying clearly. "Listen up. We're Earth Strike Force. We came for you and we're not leaving without you. But the enemy is still out there and they're going to try to stop us. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to turn this colony into a fortress. We're going to make the bleed for every meter they try to take. And when our ships are ready, we're going to put every single one of you on them and take you home." Someone in the crowd shouted, "What if they're too strong?" Smile was sharp as a knife. "Then they're going to learn what happens when you trap Earth's children and make us fight our way out. They think they have us outnumbered. They're wrong." Outside in the darkness, the forces were regrouping. They knew the humans had arrived. They were preparing their counterattack, but they did not understand what they were facing. They did not know that humans climbed to the top of Earth's food chain by being the most stubborn, adaptable, and dangerous predators their planet ever produced. The siege had become a battle, and Earth Strike Force had never lost. The ground shook like an earthquake. Grabbed the edge of the console to steady himself, his first thought was that they had started bombing the colony. Then he saw the seismic readings on the screen. These were not explosions. They were controlled impacts, landing patterns, combat drops. Was already at the external cameras, her fingers flying across the controls. She brought up the surface feeds, and what appeared on the screen made everyone in the command center stop and stare. 12 columns of fire painted the night sky, spreading across the valley in a perfect tactical pattern. They came down like meteors, their engines burning bright enough to light up the darkness. Then the hatches opened, and armored figures poured out, moving across the ground faster than anything had seen in her military career. "They're here," she whispered. Then louder, turning to face the others, "Earth Strike Force is here." The word spread through the colony faster than any announcement could travel. People ran from their quarters, crowding into corridors, trying to see the screens. Some were crying. Some were laughing. Many just stood in shock, unable to believe that help had actually come. On the surface, led his team toward the colony entrance with practiced efficiency. 3 hunter-killer drones guarded the sealed blast doors. They were military-grade machines, equipped with sensors and weapons that made them dangerous to infantry, but had not brought infantry. He had brought Earth's finest. The drones detected movement and began to rotate their weapon pods. They never completed the turn. His team hit them from 3 different angles at once. EMP grenades disrupted their targeting systems. Plasma fire from 2 Marines melted through their armor plating. Bringing up the rear, put a rail gun round through the central drone's processor core just to be sure. 7 seconds, 3 drones destroyed, not disabled, destroyed. Stepped forward with her molecular cutter. The blast doors were impressive, thick reinforced alloy designed to keep out everything from explosives to cave-ins. The cutter did not care. Its beams sliced through the metal like a hot knife through butter, leaving glowing edges that cooled to black as the door began to swing open. Inside the colony, people pushed forward to see, felt his breath catch in his throat. Standing in the entrance, backlit by the flames of battle outside, were armored warriors who looked like they stepped out of a legend. Then the lead figure's helmet retracted and saw a human face. Hard but unmistakably human. Earth Strike Force 7th Division announced. His voice was calm, almost casual. "Sorry we're late, traffic was hell." The colony erupted in noise. Relief, joy, disbelief, all mixed together in a wave of emotion that 17 days of fear and isolation had built up. People hugged strangers. Others fell to their knees. Parents clutched their children and sobbed. Sora pushed through the crowd, her medical training keeping her focused. She saw that several of the strike Marines had injuries, not serious ones but enough to need attention. She approached, identifying herself as the chief medical officer. "We have wounded," she said professionally, though her voice shook slightly. "So do we," replied. "But we can walk. Get my people patched up quick. We're not here to rest. We're here to fight." Sora set up a triage area in one of the main corridors. What amazed her was how the injured strike Marines reacted to their wounds. One Marine had a plasma burn across his shoulder, the kind of injury that would have had most people screaming. He asked for a basic pain blocker and returned to his unit 5 minutes later. Another Marine with shrapnel wounds in his leg refused treatment entirely until ordered him to sit down. "Is it always like this?" Sora asked one of the combat medics who came with the strike force. The medic, a woman named, shrugged. "Strike force selection is brutal. Only the toughest make it through. These people have been trained to ignore pain and keep fighting. It's not healthy, but it keeps them alive." While Sora worked on the wounded, Minyu was having his own revelation. The strike force engineers were interfacing with the colony's computer systems, and what they were doing seemed like magic. They fixed the failing air recyclers in minutes. They patched security holes in the network that Minyu did not even know existed. They upgraded the power distribution system to handle military equipment. "How are you doing this so fast?" Minyu asked one of the engineers. The engineer, a young woman named Bora, smiled. "We train for this. Every strike force engineer knows how to work with civilian systems. You never know what you'll find when you drop into a combat zone." She pulled up a schematic on her portable computer. "Your power grid is actually really well designed, efficient. You did good work here." Minyu felt a strange sense of pride despite the situation. These were the best Earth had to offer, and they were complimenting his engineering. Outside, found herself assigned to his command squad. He needed local knowledge, and she had military experience. As they prepared the colony's defenses, explained his plan. "The No, we're here now. They're going to come at us hard, trying to crush us before we can dig in properly. They'll bring their heavy armor, their battle mechs, everything they have." He looked at. "How much do you know about the surrounding terrain?" Pulled up maps on a portable display. "We surveyed everything within 5 kilometers when we built the colony. There are 3 main approaches from their positions. The valley to the north is the easiest path, but also the most obvious. "They'll use it," said confidently. "They have numbers. They'll think brute force is enough." He started marking positions on the map. "We'll set up smart mines here, here, and here. Automated turrets along these. Force them into a kill zone where we can hit them from multiple angles. That'll slow them down but not stop them," observed. "Don't need to stop them, just need to break their formation and make them pay for every meter." Looked at her seriously. "You've been in combat, you know how this works. The enemy has more guns than us, but we're going to make them afraid, because humans don't fight to survive, we fight to win." The preparations took hours. Strike Marines positioned automated defenses across the valley, programmed the smart mines to recognize movement patterns, and 3 other snipers took positions on the high ground with their rail guns. Every colonist who could fight was given a weapon and a position. Watch it all with a mixture of awe and fear. These strike force soldiers moved with absolute confidence, like they had done this 100 times before, which he realized they probably had. As dawn approached, the forces began to mobilize. Working in the command center with her neural implants processing every sensor feed, saw them coming before anyone else. "Enemy movement," she announced calmly. 300 troops, 20 armored vehicles, 4 heavy battle mechs. They're forming up for a major assault. Took the report without any visible concern. He activated his communicator, speaking to all his units at once. "All teams, enemy inbound. Remember your training. Make them think. Make them hesitate. Make them bleed." Stood next to him, checking her weapon for the last time. "Are you worried?" Looked at her with those hard eyes. "Always, but worry is just fear trying to keep you alive. The trick is to use it without letting it use you." He paused, then added, "They think they have us trapped. They think they're the hunters. They're wrong. They're not trapped out here with us. They're trapped out there with Earth's finest." The sun began to rise over 442B, painting the alien sky in shades of orange and red. In the valley below the colony, the forces advanced, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Inside the colony, 300 civilians sheltered in the deepest parts of the complex, away from the fighting to come. They had survived 17 days of fear. Now they could only wait and trust that the warriors from Earth could do what seemed impossible. In the command center, tracked the enemy approach with inhuman precision. Her neural implants processed battlefield data faster than any computer, calculating ranges, trajectories, timing. At the main entrance stood with his command squad among them. They waited in silence, weapons ready, watching the valley below. The assault force reached the edge of the prepared kill zone. Spoke one word into his communicator. "Fire!" And the morning exploded into violence. The first smart mine detonated exactly when programmed it to detonate. The explosion ripped through a cluster of troops, throwing bodies into the air. Then the second mine went off. Then the third. Then a dozen more in a carefully timed sequence that turned the valley into a storm of fire and shrapnel. The commander had expected some resistance. He had not expected this level of precision. The mines were not placed randomly. They were positioned to channel his forces into specific lanes, forcing them into predetermined kill zones. Whoever designed this defense understood warfare at a level that surprised him. The automated turrets opened fire next. They tracked targets with inhuman accuracy, their AI adjusting for wind, distance, and movement. Soldiers fell in rows as the computer-guided weapons found their marks. The commander tried to spread his forces wider to avoid the concentrated fire. The turrets adjusted immediately, shifting their fire patterns to match his new formation. In the command center, watched the battle through a dozen different sensor feeds at once. Her neural implants processed the data streams, identifying patterns and predicting enemy movements. She saw the commander trying to flank the turret positions and adjusted the defensive fire accordingly. It seemed like the humans could read their minds. In reality, It was just centuries of human warfare experience coded into learning algorithms. Enemy attempting to breach the east flank, reported, her voice completely calm. Redirecting turret fire. Strike Team 3, you have incoming on your position. Strike Team 3 was ready. They hit the flanking force from two directions, catching the in a crossfire. The aliens had better armor and better shields than human equipment, but they moved slower. They reacted slower, and in combat speed was often more important than protection. The battle mechs pushed forward through the chaos. Each one stood 15 meters tall, massive armored machines with enough firepower to level buildings. Their pilots were confident. Nothing the humans had could stop them. They were wrong. Watched the mechs advance and spoke calmly into his communicator. "You're up." Had been waiting on a 800 meters away. He carried a prototype rail cannon that most humans could not even lift. The weapon was designed to punch through starship armor. Using it on ground targets was considered overkill. Lined up his shot, compensating for wind and the target's movement. His neural interface helped with the calculations, but the actual shooting was all him. Years of training, thousands of practice rounds, one perfect moment. He fired. The tungsten penetrator round left the barrel at hypersonic speed. It crossed the distance to the lead battle mech in less than a second. The mech's shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They did nothing against a solid projectile moving at that velocity. The round punched through the shield, through the armor, through the reactor shielding, and into the mech's power core. The explosion was massive. The mech disintegrated, taking 2 squads of infantry with it. Debris rained down across the battlefield. Adjusted his aim, fired again. Another mech died, its pilot never knowing what hit him. The third shot took out the command mech's leg actuators, sending it crashing to the ground. The fourth mech's pilot, watching 3 of his companions die in 30 seconds, made a decision. He turned to retreat. Operating a captured plasma cannon from a fortified position, melted through his engine compartment before he could move 10 meters. 4 mechs, 4 kills, the assault was falling apart. Inside the colony, Sora's medical bay was surprisingly quiet. The strike marines were fighting with a precision that minimized their own casualties while maximizing enemy losses. The few wounded humans who came through were quickly treated and returned to their units. What shocked Sora more was when strike marines brought in wounded for treatment. "We're treating the enemy," she asked the combat medic. "We're not monsters," replied, working on it with a broken leg. "They're soldiers following orders same as us. We fight hard, but we don't torture. We don't execute prisoners. That's what separates us from the bad guys." Sora helped treat the wounded, though part of her resented having to save the same species that had tried to kill them all. But she understood. Humanity could be ruthless in combat and still hold onto its values. It was a balance that most species could not maintain. On the battlefield, the assault had completely stalled. Their commander tried to regroup, to establish a defensive position, but every time his forces tried to organize, the human weapons found them. The automated systems adapted to his tactics faster than he could change them. His soldiers were dying, and he could not figure out how to stop it. Minyu, watching from the colony's command center, was amazed by the strike force's coordination. They operated like a single organism. When one Marine ran low on ammunition, another was already moving to resupply them. When a position became too hot, the withdrawal was executed so smoothly that they could not exploit it. These were not just well-trained soldiers. They were artists of warfare. The commander made his final mistake. He committed his reserve forces, trying to overwhelm the human positions through sheer numbers. It might have worked against most enemies. Against humans, it was suicide. Saw the reserves coming and smiled. "All units free fire. Let's show them what happens when they give us targets." The concentrated fire from the strike force and their automated systems tore through the reserves. The aliens had armor, they had shields, they had technology that was more advanced than anything humanity built. But they did not have the adaptability. They fought like their doctrine taught them to fight. The humans fought like Earth taught them to fight. Win at all costs, adapt or die. There is no second place. 47 minutes after it started, the assault broke. Of the 300 troops that attacked, fewer than 80 made it back to their lines. They left behind burning vehicles, destroyed mechs, and the bodies of soldiers who learned too late that humans were not easy prey. In the command center, received a transmission from the strike fleet in orbit. Ground team, this is fleet command. Orbital space is secure. Blockade is broken. 4 enemy capital ships destroyed. The rest are retreating to the outer system. Acknowledge the transmission, then turn to address his team and the colonists who had fought beside them. We won this round, but don't celebrate yet. The took a beating and wounded predators are the most dangerous kind. Still at her position, covered in dust and exhausted, looked at. You think they'll try again? I know they will. Their pride won't let them walk away from this. Checked his weapon, reloading with practiced efficiency. But we're ready. We've proven we can hurt them. Now we're going to prove we can beat them. Emerged from the command center, looking at the battlefield. The valley was with craters and burning wreckage. The automated defenses had worked beyond his wildest expectations. The strike force had turned an impossible situation into a victory. He found and approached carefully. "Thank you," said quietly. "We would have died without you." Looked at the colony director, his expression serious. "Don't thank me yet. This fight isn't over. They still have forces in orbit. They still have ground troops on the planet. They're going to try to kill us all before they leave." He paused, then continued. "But I want you to understand something. We came for you. We crossed 40 light years in 9 days because Earth doesn't abandon its people. We're going to get every single colonist off this planet alive. That's the mission. That's the only acceptable outcome." In the colony's shelter areas, families huddled together, listening to the sounds of battle echoing through the tunnels. Children asked their parents if the fighting was over. Parents lied and said yes, even though they knew better. They had survived 17 days of fear. They could survive a little longer. Sora finished treating the last of the wounded and sat down, her hands shaking from exhaustion. Handed her a water bottle and sat beside her. "First major battle?" asked. "First any battle," Sora admitted. "I'm a doctor, not a soldier." "You handled it well. Most civilians panic when the shooting starts. You stayed calm, kept working. That takes courage." Sora looked at the combat medic. "How do you do this? How do you go from battle to battle, seeing people hurt and dying?" Was quiet for a moment. "Because someone has to. Because if we don't, more people die. It's not a good answer, but it's the only one I have." Outside, the forces were regrouping at the edge of sensor range. Their commander was making reports to his fleet. The ground assault had failed. The human defenses were too strong. But he had one option left. One final solution that would guarantee the planet and everyone on it would die. High above 442B, in the damaged bridge of his flagship, the fleet commander made a decision. If he could not have the planet, neither would the humans. He ordered every ship in his fleet to prepare for a full orbital bombardment. They would glass the entire planet, turn it into a lifeless rock. In the colony command center, sensors picked up the fleet movements before anyone else. Her expression, normally calm, showed the first sign of fear. "Commander," she said quietly, "they're coming back, all of them, not for another ground assault." Understood immediately. They're going to glass the planet. Felt hope drain away. They had survived the siege. They had survived the assault. But there was no defense against orbital bombardment. No shields. No weapons that could reach into space. They had won the battle only to lose the war. But was already thinking, already planning. "Strike fleet," he transmitted. "What's your status?" The response came back immediately. "Ground team, we're operational but outnumbered 3-1. They are coming in force. We can delay them, but we can't stop an orbital strike." looked around the command center at the tired, scared faces, at who had fought like a soldier, at Minu, who had kept them alive, at who had led his people through impossible circumstances, at who was already calculating probabilities and outcomes. Then he smiled. Then we'll just have to stop them ourselves. The fleet commander watched his ships gather at the edge of the star system. His flagship was damaged, his pride was wounded, and his patience was gone. The humans had cost him too much. If he could not claim the planet, he would make sure nobody could. Every ship under his command would converge on 442b and burn it to ash. The isotopes would be destroyed, but at least the humans would be dead. He gave the order. All ships, maximum speed, prepare for planetary bombardment. In the colony command center, saw the fleet movements and felt her stomach drop. She had run the calculations 3 times, hoping she was wrong. She was not. They're all coming, she said quietly. Every ship. Estimated time to bombardment range is 18 minutes. Collapsed into a chair. They had fought so hard, survived so much. And now it was ending anyway, just in a different way. He looked at, hopping the strike commander had some miracle planned, some secret weapon, something. Was thinking, his mind racing through options. The strike fleet in orbit could delay maybe even destroy a few ships, but they could not stop a full bombardment. The colony had no planetary defenses, no shields, nothing that could reach into space. Except the mining lasers, said suddenly. Industrial excavation equipment, how powerful are they? Minu looked confused. Powerful enough to cut through solid bedrock. Why? Can they be pointed at the sky? Understanding dawned on Minu's face. You want to use them as weapons. That's insane. They're not designed for that. We would have to bypass every safety system, overload the power grid, and even then. Can it be done? Interrupted. Minu looked at the strike force engineers. At Bora, who had been helping him maintain the colony systems. She was already pulling up schematics on her portable computer, running calculations. Theoretically, Bora said slowly, the lasers have enough power to reach orbital distances. If we remove the safety limiters and reroute all colony power to them, we could create a surface-to-orbit weapons platform. But it would be unstable. The power draw might collapse the entire grid, and we would have maybe 15 minutes to make it work. Then we better get started, said. He activated his communicator. All engineering personnel, report to the power station. We're turning this colony into a fortress that shoots back. The next 15 minutes were chaos. Strike force engineers worked alongside colony technicians, tearing apart safety systems and rewiring power conduits. Minu directed civilian volunteers in moving equipment and running cables. Sara and the non-technical colonists formed human chains, passing components and tools to wherever they were needed. Worked on the targeting systems, trying to integrate the mining lasers with military-grade sensors. These things were designed to point down, not up, she muttered, her fingers flying across interfaces. The tracking software is going to be a nightmare. Can you make it work? Asked. Give me 8 minutes and pray I don't blow us up first. In orbit, the strike fleet was buying time the only way they knew how. Fleet commander watched the fleet approaching and felt a grim satisfaction. His ships were outnumbered but they were human, and humans did not run. All ships, he transmitted. Attack pattern 7. We're going to hit them so hard they'll forget why they came here. The strike fleet accelerated directly at the formation at speeds that would have killed most species. Expecting the humans to fall back and defend, were caught off guard by the sheer aggression. Human ships darted between alien vessels like sharks, targeting weapons and engines with precision fire. Flagship, the Indomitable, launched every fighter it had. Small, fast craft piloted by humans whose reflexes gave them an edge in dogfighting that no other species could match. The fighters swarmed the fleet, breaking their formation, creating chaos. A cruiser caught the Indomitable with a direct hit, tearing through the bow and killing 73 crew members. Felt the ship shudder, saw the damage reports flooding his screens. His ship was dying. He gave one final order. All hands abandon ship. Helm, ram the nearest cruiser. Let's take them with us. The Indomitable, engines at full power, slammed into a heavy cruiser at a speed that turned both ships into expanding clouds of debris. On the planet's surface, Minu powered up the first mining laser. The beam lanced into space, bright as a star. In orbit, a destroyer that had been moving into bombardment position suddenly had a hole burned through its hull. The industrial laser, never designed as a weapon, simply overpowered the ship's shields through raw, concentrated energy. "It works," Minu shouted. "The targeting is rough, but it works." "Then get the rest online," ordered. "We need every laser we have." The second laser came online. The third. The fourth. Each one added its power to the defense, burning through ships that had never imagined ground-based weapons could reach them. The aliens' tight formation, designed to concentrate firepower for planetary bombardment, became a liability as the lasers carved through their ranks. In the command center, coordinated targeting with the security officer's combat experience combined with the strike operator's neural processing created a team that could identify and prioritize targets faster than they could react. They worked together like they had trained for years, two soldiers from different worlds united by a single purpose. "Flagship moving into position," reported. "Looks like they're trying to get out of the laser range." "Not fast enough," said. She designated the target. "You have the shot." Operating the sixth and most powerful laser personally, tracked the flagship, fed him targeting data through his neural implant. The flagship was trying to maneuver to escape the kill zone, but its reactor signatures were bright on the sensors and knew exactly where to aim. He fired. The laser beam crossed the distance in seconds, punching through the flagship's shields and into the engineering section. The commander had time to realize what was happening before his ship's reactor went critical. The explosion lit up the sky, a second sun blooming above 442b. The remaining ships broke formation and ran. Their commander was dead. Their fleet was shattered. The humans impossibly had won. In the colony, 300 people who thought they were dead erupted in celebration. People hugged, they cried, they laughed. The impossible had happened. Earth's strike force had saved them. But the cost had been high. Received the casualty reports from orbit. 3 strike ships destroyed completely. 2 more crippled and barely holding together. 547 dead. Nearly 800 wounded. The price of victory written in human blood. Dawn broke over 442b, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Stood on the observation deck looking at the strike fleet regrouping in orbit. The ships were battered but victorious. "I don't know how to thank you," said quietly. "We would all be dead without you, all of us." Was quiet for a moment looking at the human ships above. "We lost good people up there." The Indomitable went down with her commander still aboard. Strike Team 5 took heavy casualties holding the eastern flank. Marine died saving 2 colonists during the last assault. He turned to look at. "We paid a price to save you, but that's what we do. That's what humanity does. No human gets left behind, not while Earth has breath to send help." Sara joined them, exhausted but alive. Her medical bay was finally quiet, the wounded stable and resting. She had saved lives today, both human and alien. She had done what doctors do. Minu stood both looking at the sky where the strike fleet cruised in victory formation. The young engineer had kept the colony alive through 17 days of siege and a desperate battle. The security officer had fought like the soldier she was, proving that civilian life had not dulled her edge. Around them, the colonists gathered. Miners, engineers, doctors, teachers, families, normal people who had survived an impossible situation. They looked at the warriors who had crossed the galaxy to save them, at the strike marines in their battered armor, at the ships in orbit that bore the scars of battle. The message went out across the galactic networks within hours. Humanity had come for its own. They had trapped 300 colonists and tried to kill them. Earth's strike force had responded with overwhelming force and absolute determination. No negotiations, no compromise, just soldiers falling from the sky to bring their people home. Other species watched the broadcasts and took note. Some were impressed, some were frightened. All of them learned the same lesson. Humanity protected its own, always, without exception. The evacuation began the next morning. Damaged strike ships made room for colonists, cramming people into cargo bays and crew quarters. The healthy helped the wounded. Parents carried children. Everyone worked together to get off the planet that had become a battlefield. Was one of the last to board. He took one final look at the colony he had built, now by war. The mining equipment sat silent. The tunnels that had been their tomb for 17 days stood empty. He felt a strange sadness, leaving it behind. "We'll rebuild," said, standing beside him. "Earth will send more people, better defenses. This planet has resources we need, but next time we'll be ready." The transport ship lifted off, joining the fleet in orbit. 300 colonists, saved from certain death, looked through viewports at the planet below, at the scars of battle, at the wreckage of ships still burning in orbit. As the fleet prepared for the jump to, second in command, now in charge of what remained of the strike fleet, transmitted to all ships. "To all personnel, military and civilian, we came to 442B to rescue 300 colonists. Mission accomplished. The price was high, but the alternative was unacceptable. We lost friends today. We lost ships. We bled for every meter of ground and every second of time, but we won, and we're bringing our people home." The fleet jumped, leaving behind a star system that would remember what happened when humans were trapped and thought there was no escape. That would tell the story for generations. How they surrounded a human colony. How they thought they had won. How Earth's strike force fell from the sky and turned certain victory into crushing defeat. On the lead transport ship sat with Sara, Minu, and 4 people who had survived together, who had seen the worst and the best of what humanity could do. "What happens now?" Minu asked quietly. Smiled. "Now we go home, we tell our story, we remember the people who saved us." She looked at, standing with his Marines across the cargo bay. "And we make sure everyone knows, when you're human and you're in trouble, Earth will come for you. No matter how far, no matter how dangerous, they'll come." Heard her words and nodded. That was the promise Earth made to every human in the galaxy. That was why the strike force existed. Not to conquer, not to control, just to protect, just to bring their people home. The siege of 442B was over. 300 colonists had been trapped with no escape, surrounded by enemies, facing certain death. Until Earth's strike units fell from the sky and proved, once again, why humanity was never to be underestimated, never to be dismissed, and never ever to be written off. They were human, they were Earth's children, and they never gave up.